In Texas this morning.
In Texas morning, yes, ma'am. Yes, I'm telling you what, because her knowledge. Yeah, we did. Hey, you ready? It's okay.
We'll talk later.
Yeah, trust me, when I send you some things that she's done, you'll appreciate it. It could be any sheet.
It sounds good.
Okay, so Manny, the way this thing works, we keep it very simple. So the way this works, we keep it real simple.
Yeah.
Just you having a conversation with people. You know, I like to say black people, but sometimes other people show up. You know, you talking family, so to speak, no big deal. I try to have people on the camera, I have people be right here because when I'm on Zoom, but I go live on Facebook.
Okay.
So I tell people not to go past the second chair.
Okay.
Because then when you be out of the screen, I will turn it if I have to, but I try not to. So I'll do a brief intro as far as why we're here, what we do. I have a very brief snippet I got from your website about you.
Okay.
But it's brief.
Okay.
So you're gonna have to, add to.
Okay.
And really it's and you've done this before. It's
Yes.
about you letting the people know who you are, why they should vote for you, Bob.
Got it.
And that's it. All right. So I'm going to do my real quick. All right. Okay. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. I thank you guys for being here. As you guys know, Thursday morning breakfast, we do this every Thursday morning. Public, private sector speakers coming out to talk about different things as it relates to the community. We, the Grow for Care Alliance, we want to be the bridge between the people who are doing the good and those that need the good to be done in their lives. For whatever reason, that good work, that good energy isn't always received by those that need it most. And we want to do what we can to make sure that we are bringing the two together. The 18th Congressional District is I won't say up for grabs, but people are running for the seat. And we want to have as many candidates come out as possible to speak, which is why Miss Amanda Edwards is here. So I'm going to read her very brief bio that I got from her website, and she's going to add too. So Amanda Edwards is a native Houstonian, former at-large city council member, attorney, and a founder of a community nonprofit that empowers various groups from seniors to women. Amanda is now running to serve the historic 18th Congressional District in the United States Congress. She is not new to politics. She's been around for a minute. She's done a lot of good things from what I've seen. And I just want you guys to learn more about her so we can continue to promote what she's trying to do as well as the other candidates. Unfortunately, when it comes to politics, our community doesn't always pay attention.
Okay.
We love to complain, but we don't want to be organized to push back against the things that we're complaining about. And we're hoping that we can get someone in the office who will represent well and keep this thing moving.
Okay.
So then, can we give Amanda a round of applause, please, real quickly? Give you her name.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And again, my apologies for our delay, but I am very happy to be here with you this morning. Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Amanda Edwards. I'm your former at-large Houston City Council member, and I am running to be the next Congresswoman for the 18th Congressional District. Now, as you all know, our district has experienced quite a bit of loss. We lost both Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee and Congressman Sylvester Turner within less than a year from each other. But what we also know is that our community is resilient. And we stand on the shoulders of greats like Barbara Jordan, like Mickey Leland,
Yep.
like Craig Washington, like Sheila Jackson Lee, and Sylvester Turner, all of whom fought for justice and fought for people. We know that on this next leg of the journey, we are going to have to put someone in place that can uphold that fight for people and that legacy of the district, but also who will be ready for the challenges of this time. And that is, we are standing in unprecedented times. Never in my lifetime have I seen a president that didn't believe in the rule of law. Never in my lifetime have I seen a president that has fought against healthcare, fought against education, fought against Social Security, fought against economic stability in our community the way that this president has. So we need to send somebody to Washington who is going to be equipped to fight, but also have a fresh perspective, innovative solutions. He is doing some things that we've never seen the likes of before. And so we've got to bring some new ideas to how to fight back to the table. Also, we need to still send somebody into office that has a vision for our future. It's not enough just to fight back. We've got to fight forward and build a community that we all deserve. And so that is a community where we're not just getting by day to day. We need a community where each and every single one of us, no matter what your background, no matter where you live, has the opportunity to thrive each and every single day. And that is my objective. That is the mission. That is the goal. Should you send me to Congress to be your next Congresswoman? Now, I am no stranger to the 18th Congressional District. In fact, I was born, I was raised, and I still live in the 18th to this day. I am a proud graduate. I went to Our Savior down the street this way. I went to Eisenhower High School down the street that way. My mom went to Carver High School. We are scattered about all over the 18th Congressional District. My uncle used to own an old C&L shoe repair in Lyons Avenue in 5th Ward. So we know this district well. My grandfather was a longshoreman. So we've been in this district a long time, working people and really people who really believe in service. I will say that I take it personally what happens in this district. And so I want to make sure we get it right. When I say get it right, putting in place a servant leader who will not play politics with people's lives. And I'll tell you where that motivation comes from. When I was growing up, my father got sick. He was diagnosed with something when I was 10 years old, he was diagnosed with something called multiple myeloma. And that's a very aggressive form of cancer that took his life when I was a teenager. And I'll never forget asking my father when he was seeking his treatments, I'd ask him because I was learning about this insurance stuff. And I remember asking him, well, what happens if they say no? And my dad would just kind of say, well, we would just have to figure something else out. And I knew then as a young teenager, and I know now in 2025, that was the wrong answer. And that the right answer should have been that we had systems that save lives versus harm them, that we have systems in place that help to protect families instead of neglect them. And we are in a space and place where we are playing so much politics with people's lives with a reckless indifference for what happens to our kids, what happens to our families, and what happens to our communities. We just watched that play out yesterday, okay? Yesterday, our governor just announced that in this special session that has been called for July 21st, the 18th Congressional District will be redistricted.
Oh, wow.
Did y'all hear what I said?
Wow. Gerrymandering.
Yesterday.
Wow.
So while they were trying to look for these missing people in the Guadalupe River floods, we over here doing an off-cycle redistricting of the district, as though the 800,000 people in this district haven't had enough problems. We have been, when you count the math, just so y'all do it, I'll do the math for you. When you count the math, By the time I take office as your next congresswoman in December, because we're gonna have a runoff, it's a 26-person race. I don't know if y'all knew that.
Yeah.
So by the time somebody's in place and you count the time from congresswoman passing and count the time from congressman passing and the delay in the special election and then runoff and all that, do you know you will have been without representation for 18 months?
Wow.
So that theory of no taxation without representation
Hmm.
somehow the way doesn't apply in the 18. And I need somebody to make that make sense. Because the last time I checked, y'all pay taxes. The last time I checked, y'all were all contributing members and hardworking members of our community.
Yeah.
You deserve to have representation.
Yeah.
And not just any representation, the right representation, the representation that's going to put your needs first over the politics. Now, we just saw what voting can mean. For those that are not familiar, I'll tell you a little bit about my story. You know, I'm motivated by what happened with my father when I was growing up. I'm very passionate about putting people over politics. After I graduated, I graduated from Eisenhower. I went to Emory undergrad. And then I had the opportunity to work for Congressman Jackson Lee in Washington, D.C. in the 18th Congressional District. Then I had the opportunity to go to Harvard Law School. I came back home after Katrina. I went to New Orleans first, and then I came back home and I started practicing what's called public finance, which means I was bringing public funding to public projects. And y'all know, like I know, a lot of what you do in Congress is what? Bring home the bacon for your district, right? So having somebody who has an understanding of how to be most efficient and effective at doing that, I think is a real strong suit for someone seeking this role. I then, of course, became one of your at-large Houston City Council members. It was then that I got a chance to focus on things like how do we create more opportunity for everybody to thrive? One project led to me helping the startup community. We have an innovation district that got built as a result of our work. The other effort that I led was around small businesses of color, women-owned small businesses that lack access to capital and the inability for them to scale because they weren't getting those traditional bank loans. You know, I remember when we started that work and we were talking about how Houston is the most diverse city in the nation. And I turned and I said, well, what good is it to be the most diverse if we're not solving the challenges that our diverse communities face?
Yep.
Isn't that the work of equity?
Right.
And so that's when we started that task force and came up with strategies and ways that we could reduce the disparities here in our city. Just so you know, at that time when I was doing that work, we found that white-owned small businesses were at $225 billion in sales and receipts. But then we looked at other small businesses and we found that Latino small businesses were at 19.1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
And then we found Black-owned businesses were only at a number of 3.3 billion.
Yeah.
Now y'all know, like I know, it's not because we don't have businesses, small business. We're standing in one right now.
That's right.
But it's intentionality.
Yeah.
It's the lack of leadership. It's a lack of having a plan in place to start shifting resources and opportunities to folks in the ways that they need. And so one of the things that I will do as your next Congresswoman, DEI is not a bad word to me. Mm-hmm. And I believe in equity. I believe in being strategic about how we move dollars into institutions that lend at greater rates to businesses like this one, because that's the right thing to do. And we can't be a city that champions diversity, but not opportunity.
Right.
And we've got to really put leaders in place that are going to prioritize that. It can't just be an aside or yes, I believe in that. You got to look at the work people have done to evidence what they say they stand for. Yeah. And that's what I stand for. Also, I had the opportunity to assist in the aftermath of Harvey. Y'all know what the 51 inches of rainfall was, so I don't have to tell you what that was. But what I will tell you is that it was very eye-opening and connects to the moment we're standing in now. Mm-hmm. I'll never forget learning that a lot of our seniors, they were cleaning up their houses, mopping up the floors. But when I would ask them, what about the walls? They would say, those walls have already dried. And of course, you know, like I know, you can't leave the walls soiled by the flood water, you're going to get what? Mold. Yes, so we mobilized hundreds of volunteers. We knocked door to door. We went all over North Houston, checking on our most vulnerable seniors. And I'll tell you what happened that broke my heart. And it was, I would step foot on the doorsteps, and the first thing they'd say to me is, what are you doing here? And I'd say, well, I'm your city council member.
Yeah.
I'm here to help.
My job.
Yeah. So what do you mean? What am I doing here? Then this is the kicker. Then they say, but wait a minute. Are you up for re-election already?
Mm. Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
This was the second worst disaster in United States history. But the first thing that came to mind when they saw their elected official on their doorstep is that I must need something from
What's the
them.
election time?
Yeah.
Right.
As opposed to me being there to make a deposit into their lives. What about us? We know how to find you. We know when it's time to vote. We know your name. We know your voting history. We know where you vote, when you vote, what coffee you drink when you vote. We know it all. But we get selective amnesia when it's time to deliver the change that we talk about on these campaign trails.
Yeah.
We get selective amnesia when it's time to really solve the problems and tackle the challenges that you have when you call our offices. And that is something that I stand against. I believe in restoring confidence in government, letting people see by the example that we set that we can be effective at leading and delivering the change that people deserve. So I think that is actually part of the problem that we're facing as a party. And I know everybody, this is not partisan, but I know everybody is, or a lot of people are disappointed that Kamala Harris didn't become the president.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. So a lot of, I think, what's driving people to stay at home is that they believe that it doesn't really matter.
Yep.
They believe that nothing really ever changes. So what if we could put somebody into place that can demonstrate the opposite, that could brings people's confidence back, bring people back into the fold? How? By being honest with people. I'm not going to come over here and pretend like I have a cape, because I don't. But I can work with you and we can affect change in the following ways. And here's our plan on how. Talking to people, being present, listening, solving challenges, and then of course delivering results. Don't overpromise and then underdeliver.
That's right.
And that is part of what erodes our democracy. Too much of the I'm just going to do this, and then you don't do it, and they just hope that nobody notice. That's not how you get our math problem to be fixed. When Karl Rove realized that Republicans had a math problem years ago, he said, well, we're going to have to add some people to the mix. And so he took, from the fiscal conservatives, they needed more people. That wasn't enough fiscal conservatives for Republican to remain in power. So you know what he did? He went and found the evangelical Christians.
That's right.
And he said, what about y'all? Come
That's
over
right.
here.
Yeah.
Y'all got these interests. We got these. If we combine forces, we can win some races.
That's right.
And that's how they fixed their math problem.
Yeah.
Our math problem doesn't stem from finding new groups. Our math problem stems from one key essential group, which is our non-voting group.
Yeah, which is a big one.
It's a huge group.
Yeah,
There's millions of people there, and they've gotten turned off by the status quo. Well, let me tell you, I am not the status quo. And if anybody knows my journey, it's been a very windy path. But one where I have not taken no for an answer. And if you think that someone who is willing to take no for an answer belongs to 18th Congressional office, you have something else and you have the wrong ID. We need somebody who's going to be persistent. We are going to need somebody who's going to be persistent, tenacious, continuing to knock until we get that yes. And I have been on this trail. Y'all know I started off in the mayor's race. And when Congresswoman Jackson Lee decided she wanted to come home and serve as mayor, I made the pivot into the 18th Congressional District race back in June 2023. Some of y'all were with me when I did that. And I started that race. I was front runner there. But when Congresswoman did not win the mayor's race, she decided to refile for the 18th, the race that I was in. And so as a result, she won. And then sadly passed away just a few months later. But because of the timing of her death, we can go back to having a primary. We had just had thousands of people vote for us in a primary. None of those votes could count. We had to go into a special precinct chair selection process. And that was how the replacement on the ballot was made. And so that was made by precinct chairs within the district. And so on the first round, we had about 7 people in that race, give or take. Congressman Turner was one of those. And the first round, Congressman Turner and I were 1 vote apart. Wow. And on the second round, we were 4 votes apart. That was the margin. So we were close.
Wow.
But of course, as it panned out, he won and pursued this and was able to assume the seat. Sadly, 7 weeks into his term, he passed away. And because of the way our state laws are written, it gives full discretion to the governor as to whether to call a special election, number one. So it doesn't have to call it to begin with. And then the second part is when it can be held. So they knew they didn't want to hold that special election before that big beautiful bill was going before Congress. Okay. That's what I'm talking about, playing politics with people's lives. Okay. So we sat there and passed, the House of Representatives passed by a margin of 1 vote. Y'all hear what I said? That first initial passage was a margin of 1 vote to cut Medicaid funding by $900 billion, SNAP funding by $300 billion, our health care, all of the things that are going to have a ripple effect. All of that came from that one bill and passed by 1 vote. Had I been in Congress, I guarantee you I would have blocked that big, beautiful bill. So for anybody that tells you voting does not matter, please give them that example. So it went on to the Senate, came back to the House, and passed into law by the president. And that is now what we have to live with because of the politics people play with the, with these elections and delaying it and all. Y'all deserve better than that. And so we've got to also lead the charge on reform of those laws to begin with. So I'm going to pause there. I've talked about a lot. I talked about our journey here. I've talked about, of course, what is at stake. I'm a meat and potatoes gal. And so we're talking about healthcare access. We're talking about economic opportunity. We're talking about Social Security. And we're talking about, of course, making sure that people have education access. Because we're under attack on that front too. Normally, you don't hear federal candidates talking about education. But guess what? We got a president that just dismantled the Department of Ed.
That's right.
So to not talk about education is irresponsible at this point. So I want to open it up for questions that you have. I do want to inform you about the unusual nature of this special election. Okay, y'all with me? This is a very unusual race. Not only is it held on November 4th, 2025, but the other thing that makes it unusual is the fact that it's going to be one big giant general election. There will be no primary. So don't look for a primary because there will be no primary. So all 26 of us, at least 26 today, might be more tomorrow, Republicans, independents, and Democrats, we will be on one ballot at one time. But when people look at you cross-eyed and their eyes start glazing over, they're like, what? Just tell them, think about how we do the mayor's race. And in the mayor's race, there's no primary, right? You just have one big giant election. It's not usually 26 people, but you do have one big giant general election. And what usually happens is that you end up in a runoff. And so that's what we anticipate for this. So just be mindful of that. And I'm going to tell you, we've been block walking, we've been phone banking. What we have discovered is that people don't know the special election actually got called this year. No.
Wow.
No.
Wow.
So they heard all over the universe
Wow.
that Governor Abbott didn't call a special election. Everybody knew that, right? It was all over the news for like weeks. But then when it finally got called, it got called like on Monday night at 4:30. And so the news cycle, anybody watching the news that Monday in the evening time, they caught the story. But they didn't amplify it for 2-3 weeks like they had the he didn't call it message. So you got a lot of people who are just living their lives and not knowing that got called. Now y'all are in a room like this, meaning y'all are very engaged people. So you know it, but please don't assume your neighbors know it and your friends know it. They are not, I promise you, they're not paying any attention. They know we're running, but they don't know we're running for this year. They think it's for next year. And it took me a minute to figure that out. And people would just say, wait, what? 25? And I say, yeah, 25. And then they'd say, oh, and I can see that, okay, they didn't get that message.
Right.
So you have to be the messengers, okay? So any questions, thoughts, concerns? I thank you all for allowing me to speak to you this morning. I'm very excited about the prospect of leading your community. As I stated, my goal is to create a community where we all can thrive in it and also have a novel approach to getting things done for the challenges that we face. We're going to have to really be strategic. I'm very passionate also about infrastructure investment. I know it's not the sexiest topic on earth, but for us, it's essential. We have got to get somebody in there that understands infrastructure investment, which I do. I've been doing that for years. but then also somebody that's going to be committed when the cameras go away to making sure those dollars still are going to where they need to go. So we're better prepared for next time.
Right.
I was on council when 3 500-year flood events happened. Do you know how short people's memory span is about the devastation that results, about all the things you need to do, some of the changes you need to make in terms of policies? You gotta have the courage to do that.
Yeah.
People will, tell you, oh, I don't like that, and that's gonna make this happen. It is, but it's gonna also keep you safe. And so you need leaders that are not gonna be short-sighted, but really will keep us protected and safe. And so everybody wants to play woulda, coulda, shoulda. You
Yep.
saw what just happened with Guadalupe River floods, right? Everybody woulda, coulda, shoulda. Why didn't they buy the sirens? Why didn't they do that? That's when you put the type of leaders who would make sure that that was purchased,
Yeah.
so you don't have that type of loss of life, or at least as much of it. Sometimes you can't stop, catastrophic events, but you certainly can be better prepared for them.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So thank you. I appreciate it. I got a few questions. I'll
Yes.
pick it up. I'm sure other people have questions as well. But the first one that comes to mind, and I ask all of the candidates this because it's a big deal, and I'm glad you actually mentioned it. We have a president who is reminding people that this country still has racial issues. How can a congressperson, no matter how well intentioned, push back against an administration that has the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court? They got the power. So what realistically can be done as a Congress person to push back and make sure the 18th is taken care of?
Great question. So I alluded to this, and I'll get into the specifics of this. First of all, I don't believe that DEI is a bad word.
Right.
Okay. So you're gonna have some folks that are gonna have some courage,
Hmm.
because a lot of what's happening now with our president, he's getting away with it because people are afraid of him.
That's right.
They don't want to be on some list
right.
somewhere.
Yep.
They don't want to be blocked from having a security clearance, blah, 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 all the things. Okay. You need people who are going to be willing to stand up.
Yep.
And in this instance, I'll use the example of small businesses of color because, that's what I was talking about earlier. When we discovered, when we started doing our work, we came up with some strategies and recommendations on how we could reduce the disparities that our small businesses of color and women-owned small businesses face because they had such trouble getting access to money for their business and all of those things. And when we started doing the work, one of the key strategies that we identified was getting dollars, because you see, at that long time, a while ago, the statistic was really bad. The minority-owned businesses were 3 times as likely than their non-minority counterparts to gain access to a traditional bank loan. So that would mean like you have to be told no 3 more times than the next person.
Right.
And so how many people in small businesses would quit in that process?
Yeah.
You got second, no, maybe this is not for me. Let me leave this catering business as a hobby versus my real entrepreneurial endeavor.
Yeah.
And so that's what happens. And so long story short, we started recognizing and highlighting that if you start shifting dollars, instead of just pushing dollars out to the banks, and you start pushing them into what's called community development financial institutions.
Mm-hmm.
They're known as CDFIs.
Right.
99.9% of people have no idea what that is, but it's a very effective tool for helping our small businesses to have economic opportunity because they lend at much greater rates to women and minority small businesses because they have a different regulatory paradigm. They're not under the strict regulatory paradigm of a traditional bank. They're nonprofits. They have a different approach that they can be more lenient in their practices.
Okay.
And so as a result of that, we started seeing, if y'all remember in the pandemic, those PPP loans that was getting distributed, that the goal of that was to help offset the needs that small businesses had when they were in a position where they could not support by their own revenues the work, staff, and we didn't want everybody to lose their jobs and all that. So they're trying to prop small businesses up with those PPP loans. What we saw is Shake Shack got $10 million on that first tranche. Shake Shack got $10 million and mom and pop shops shut down. So you're saying, well, wait a minute. How are these guys shutting down and Shake Shack getting $10 million? Explain this to me. They weren't the priority for the traditional banking institutions. Okay.
Yeah.
And so when the second tranche went out, you know what they did? What shift they made? Corrective action was to start pushing dollars into these CDFIs as well. And when they saw that money go into CDFIs, mom and pop shops neighborhood small businesses, businesses of color. You started seeing the money get to them. It wasn't getting to them on that first round, but it was getting to them on the second round in a much more efficient way. So my point to you is, instead of having an argument about DEI with President Trump, why not just go put these dollars and start moving dollars into CDFIs? You know, you can do what needs to be done and get the result and outcome that benefits your community.
Gotcha.
And so these are ways in which I think we maneuver in times like these. Great question.
Cool.
Yes.
Who?
Yes.
Oh, better win. Oh.
Yes, sir.
Explain the big beautiful bill delay. That came out.
Okay. So the big beautiful bill, for those that are not familiar, just passed last week actually, and initially was in the House about 3 weeks ago, passed by one vote in the House. One of the key pieces is the $900 billion in Medicaid cuts. It strips it out. It gives tax cuts to the billionaires and the high and wealthy. They get tax cuts, and then benefit cuts are paying for it. So the SNAP benefits, 300.
I know that, meaning that's an article came out saying that it's a delay.
It's a delay in the bill coming up?
Oh, yeah, so you're saying it's when it takes effect, correct? So it's not gonna immediately take effect, and so you're gonna see that until after we get past this year, yeah, so it's not gonna take
That's why
effect.
it's saying after December, after.
Yes.
26.
Right, yeah.
That's correct.
After
So what
December.
people will, so it's to get people to not associate the damage
Right.
that has been caused
Right.
to the action taken. So by the time those things start happening, you might see Democrats in office at that point. You may see changes, and so people will disassociate cause and effect. You see what I'm saying? Again, playing politics. So very crafty. When I say Donald Trump and his team have been innovative,
Yeah.
boy, have they been innovative. And we need to put folks in there and say, okay, you want to be crafty? I'll be crafty too. And figuring out our pathway. You know, they have Project 2025.
Yeah.
Great question, by the way. They have Project 2025. Where's our plan? Where's our roadmap?
Come on.
We're telling people boycott this store because they don't support DEI. But where are you telling them to put the money?
Right.
Why don't we put the money into the hands of the organizations that are filing lawsuits against these executive orders that Donald Trump is signing into passage?
Yep.
Why aren't we doing that? Our leadership has got to speak up and have a vision and a plan. You know, biblically, a people without a vision, what?
Perish.
Okay, so we don't have a plan. We don't have a vision. And y'all know, we'll go back. Civil rights movement. I wasn't there then, but I was told, you know, about the struggle. And I read about the struggle. And we were not empowered every step of the way during that process. It was a long, arduous, difficult time for everybody.
Yeah.
And so whether you were involved in the activism strategy, boycott, sit-ins, you name it, you could have been doing that part. Whether you were involved in the litigation strategy, they might, you know, rules of, I mean, all of those things. You could have been involved in the litigation or in legislation, Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act. There was a role to be played, but an overarching plan of where we were trying to get. And when the timing was right, we were ready for it. And right now, we don't have an overarching plan. Where are we trying to go? That's where your leadership's got to step up and say, here's where we've got to go. And like for us, in my view, I don't think that this community is properly served until everybody in this community has the opportunity to thrive in that community, whether it's your healthcare, whether it's your housing, whether it's your infrastructure investment, whether it's your education access, whether it's your economic stability. That's what you are putting these leaders in place to have a vision. And then we got to have a roadmap. They got a roadmap?
Right.
Why don't we have one?
Yep.
We got to put some new energy around planning for the future, creating a strategy, and then get what? People to re-engage.
Yeah.
Because that's the other problem. People are sad. People are overwhelmed. People are depressed about what happened in the aftermath of the presidential election.
Yep.
They have become overwhelmed, all those executive orders that got passed. And so guess what they've done? disengaged.
Yep.
But I'm here to say that the same things you were fighting for in October, in September, in November, we need you fighting for them today.
Still a fight.
And that's what we have to communicate, is that this isn't about the failed parties. This is about your life, your future, your community. I say I'm on the ballot and I want y'all to put my name on the ballot, man, Evans. But what's really on the ballot is you. You see what I'm saying? Yes, ma'am.
So I have to say, when you say I'm on the ballot, a lot of times what happens is that politicians come in, they say they're working with us, but then they bring all the stuff in our community. Well, take that. Community people have great ideas. Like, how can you take those ideas and implement them because we know it's helping?
Good
But
question.
then people bring other people in our community that's not even a part of our community, while we have those same people in our community that can do that work. If that makes sense.
Yes. So you're also talking to,
How piggyback on Green was saying is that you say the plan, two things. What's your plan? What are you actually working on to alleviate some of the problems and issues, or what specifically are you working on? And out of these 10 people that's in this room right now, what kind of direction do you have for us to leave here? Along with, as far as an action plan, I leave here not just talking about the situation. What plan do you have in place, or what instruction, or what guide would you have?
yeah.
So the first question, then the second
Yeah,
question.
they're different questions.
There's different questions.
I got it.
Don't give away.
Yeah.
Don't give away the plan. Okay.
But
But I'll give you a few examples. How about that? And let me answer your question about, okay, let me use,
Should be doing, that's all I ask.
let me use the example of how I would work alongside the community. You are talking to somebody not only that is familiar with the community, that has been my life's work, is to work alongside the community. That is my style of leadership. So when I was serving as the president of Project Row Houses, which is in 3rd Ward, we don't impose on the community our vision for it. We work with residents, we listen to what they had to say, and then implement strategies to help get us there. So you're talking to somebody who has a community-based organization background, in addition to having an attorney. And so that's my approach. I know that it can be controversial, but I will just say, when they were doing the complete community design, it was my insistence that we involve community leaders and community stakeholders to play a part. It could not be something that came from City Hall and then just came out and rolled out to the community. So they created that structure around having the community stakeholders because of my insistence. I'm someone who's always trying to insert the community at the proper point. Don't come over there and ask them for a rubber stamp. It's too late. You already moved together with your plan. And so in this case, I will do the same. When I was on city council, we had something called Be the Solution Task Force. So we would empower residents who raised their hands with the tools needed to deal with specific community-based problems that they identify. So we bring them in, give them the tools. This is, okay, a letter writing campaign to this group, this, that, and the third.
Yeah.
So I am somebody who deeply believes and strongly believes that you are only as strong as your relationship with your residents and the information you have, because of the trust and relationship you built with them, and then your collaboration with them. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to see any sustainable long-term change until you have that community buy-in
Yep.
and participation.
Yep.
So I was a community building and social change fellow when I was a college student. I worked in 6 different CDCs. So this is truly my foundation of how I perceive leadership. So my style is a lot different than most people. I'm a neighborhood person. But that's what a community is. It's a series of neighborhoods. Okay, and then to your question, one of the things that I think this group can do, again, I mentioned it as an example. We got all these conversations around who to boycott, what to do. I want you guys, those businesses that you have chosen to boycott because of their anti-DEI stances, I want you to take those dollars and put it into the hands of groups like the ACLU. Why am I saying that? Do I work for ACLU? No, I don't. But I know what lawsuits they're filing. And they're filing lawsuits in this moment that challenge the executive orders that are peeling back our rights. So don't be passive in that fight. You don't have to be a lawyer to be involved in the litigation strategy. Okay. That's why I use the civil rights example because you have these different ways of getting involved. So activism is one way. There are protests that are happening. Definitely want you participating as you feel comfortable in those, but know that there is a way to also assist what I think is the strongest fight we have at this moment, which is those lawsuits. If we file those lawsuits challenging those executive orders, and I'm going to tell y'all something that just happened. The courts just ruled that lower courts, before it was the case that when, let's say he did the birthright citizenship,
Yeah.
executive order,
Yep.
something crazy.
Yep.
He did it, something else crazy, right? When that would happen, what was happening is that a lower court could say,
Yeah.
you can't do that. In that ruling, they call it injunction.
Mhm.
Well, that injunction could apply to anybody, everywhere in the country.
Yeah.
So they could be in Texas and a federal judge ruled that way, and then it applies everywhere. Well, they just had a Supreme Court case come down the pipeline and say you can't do that.
Yep.
And so now, instead of one court being able to say, we're stopping that executive order from passing, and wreaking havoc, all these different local judges would have to move that way,
Mhm.
which is absolutely crazy.
Yep.
But that's something that just happened. Again, start donating those dollars from boycotting, but put them into those lawsuits. If we can start, that's what we have the best chance of fighting right now. We don't have the power in the House. We don't have the power in the Senate. We don't have the White House. We know that. Doesn't mean that there are not things that maneuvering that could be done still. But as far as you're concerned and how you can specifically re-engage, that is what I recommend. And you will then see more of that get advanced. Those groups are under attack. They put them on the list. And everybody who's been suing him and fighting in the
Yep.
litigation room, they're getting in trouble.
They're gonna be on the list, yeah.
So that affects their ability to fight for us. And so that would be my recommendation that's specific to this group in this room that can be done today. Okay?
Alright.
And then you asked me something else.
What are you doing? I know you're campaigning, it's probably a lot. Exactly for you doing to offset, alleviate the problems that are existing right now.
Oh, yeah, so
What are you doing?
yes, so we have a nonprofit, sadly, I believe that, and I can't really bring it into politics, so.
Hold on. Is Renee, you talking about a specific problem or just in general?
Let's go with specific.
Mhm.
Specific.
It's specific, okay.
Yeah, so we have I'm not gonna speak the name and all that, because I need to keep all that separate for purposes of keeping my nonprofit separate from politics, but we have a nonprofit that does a lot of work around seniors and the various issues that impact them, and in particular, housing is one of those. I didn't talk about that today. I can talk about housing. And one of the things, as your next congresswoman, I recommend that we do, one of the things that's so blatantly problematic is how dysfunctional our disaster recovery system is in our country, and how dysfunctional our infrastructure investment is in our country, and who it hurts the most are our seniors who are not advocating for themselves. And so we see so much devastation. People are in these systems and they know how to get to a no. They know what systems they don't fit in. They know what programs they don't qualify for. Who's helping them navigate to a yes? Who's helping them find a solution? I've been doing that since Hurricane Harvey. Yes, so I've been doing this a long time, but I'm just sharing with you the concept of how we connected to the 18th Congressional District. What I know is that there's not one place that is a one-stop shop for people to get housing solutions. Okay, so you go to the city, they'll tell you, no, you don't qualify for this. You go to a nonprofit organization, XYZ, they'll tell you, no, you don't qualify for this. And the seniors, they're just in a whirlwind. They're overwhelmed. They need case management. So the proposal that I have put forward is to have the 18th Congressional District really convene the federal, state, local governmental interests alongside the nonprofit entities that are of interest as to how to navigate housing solutions for people. And so if you bring in case management, then people will be able to come to a yes, find a housing, what do they fit in versus what do they not fit in?
Right.
And right now, all we have is the latter. And so I've been kind of filling in, pitch hitting in the gaps for people because I've been doing this a long time. But we need to have a system set up. That's when I talked about my father, systems is what we need. We
Yeah.
need systems that work, not just, oh, I got a chance to talk to this woman. She was really knowledgeable about what I should do. That's where it is now. Oh, yeah, well, go talk to her. And so a housing solution center.
Why is that system, where is it? Where in the spectrum of starting, completion, actual implementation, where is it now?
Yeah, I gotta get elected first. That's where we are now. That's part of my platform. That's what I wanted to connect it to. I want to get into Congress so that I can connect the dots on these systems that don't work. And so it doesn't work on disaster recovery. It doesn't work with their flooding infrastructure. And so that's what my platform is about, is creating systems and putting those into place, because I've witnessed the gaps. I'm in the gaps every day. Every time I get a call, I get a gap. People needing housing, they don't know what to do. I shouldn't be getting those calls, right? But I get them because we don't have a system set up for them to go to. And so that housing solution center that I think is something that is an excellent idea for our region is something I would push forward and lead. And I think we can get that to materialize.
I got a statement, just so you understand where I'm coming from, and a question. So, I've been working in Houston in the food agricultural sector now for going on about 3 or 4 years. During that time, I've met a lot of individuals, by the way, my name is Sean. So since I've been working throughout that area, I've met a lot of good individuals, farmers, restaurant owners, farmers markets. And understanding that Houston is on slate to become one of the biggest cities in America. We have a major food insecurity problem.
Yes, we do.
We want to be able to grow the population, but we don't want to have the food available in our regional area in which we're able to feed those individuals. So when we look at food importers like the Monte going out of business, which when you look at the Houston Food Bank, when you look at other major food banks, one of their big things is canned foods. Understanding that those canned manufacturers are having issues now, we now need some other type of local support when it comes to being able to produce fresh foods, non-canned foods. Even though we have all these individuals that are willing, they are wanting to be able to help Houston become more food sovereign. In terms of citywide and individual-wide. We have a board that's specifically here in Houston to start that progress. I volunteered on the Houston's Board of Food Insecurity going on 2 years. I saw no progress. I know the things that they have access to, but I've never seen any movement. Even when I've contacted the chairman, when I've contacted District J at Powell, even when I just sent in a letter to the city about that. I'm right now looking for answers on if we want to become that, if we want to become one of the biggest cities in America, if we want to have that known, what are we doing to solve the food problems that we already have an overabundance in? Over the last couple of years, I've pretty much acquired almost around 30+ acres of land. The individuals have told me, hey, I want a community garden, I want this, I want that. And I approached the city with that, and I'm like, hey, I have individuals who want me to go and create these community gardens, not only for themselves, but there are other individuals that want to see food locally grown in their communities, and there's other individuals that want to be able to actually get more experience. Think about Purdue University.
Your question, Shaka, your question. So we run out of time.
All right,
You give a whole speech.
well, I was kind of getting into the question with that one. With all these different entities wanting to be able to actually come together and be able to provide that food security for citizens, but not having the backing of the city when it comes to that. What are some things that can be implemented, done in order to get the city to work with individuals that want to be able to provide that? And so that we're able to start tackling that a little bit better in regards of the food security.
You know, that's an excellent question, and thank you for providing me some additional information about this subject. I think it's a very important one. I think it really came to the far-reaching nature of it came to light during the pandemic. We really saw how many people were food insecure. in that period of time. I think the answer, as it relates to how do we get the city to embrace a plan to address the disparities that are result from food insecurity, stems from on the federal side, involvement on the Department of Agriculture. There can be grants. When you're in Congress, you have the ability to pass laws. You have the ability to use your bully pulpit to convene, to advocate. You have the ability to address constituent response issues, and you have the ability to help provide grant funding and other funding supports. I would be willing to advocate that Department of Ag would be willing to put down some additional grants with some ties attached. I mean, and I say ties, if the problem is getting the city to take you seriously, perhaps it is providing a grant or getting a grant created at the federal level that would then require a plan to be presented, but then at the same time, attach dollars to it to then help address or offset those food insecurity needs. And so I'm somebody who believes in kind of clever policymaking. So sometimes you gotta get people, I want to do the same thing with housing. Get people to do what you want them to do without, you can't pass a law. I can't pass laws for the city of Houston. I can't. If I'm your congresswoman, that's not my jurisdiction. But what I can do is try to tie the money to that activity, right? And say, okay, well, these are one of the preconditions. Show us how you are addressing the food insecurity in the city and get serious around planning for it, showing certain elements of progress, and then those dollars can be made available.
Okay, cool. Good question, brother. Excellent setup. Okay, I got 2 questions. And then I'm sorry, I apologize. I didn't see you. I'm sorry, my bad, Miss Fontenot. Miss Fontenot.
Thank you. In the steps of the Trump administration. That's my question number 1.
Yes, it's not only following in the steps, I think it is colluding to harm our people. This idea of redistricting the 18th Congressional District, I don't think that was Governor Abbott by himself. That's Donald Trump. That's President Trump. All his fingerprints all over it. We saw that when the idea of not filling the 18th Congressional District seat, you think that was Governor by himself? No, indeed.
No.
There was pressure from the White House to get that big, beautiful bill passed and to keep the margins intact so that could be possible. They even stopped somebody who was trying to, they stopped somebody who was trying to become an ambassador on the Republican side from going through their process because they didn't want to mess with the margins. So if they're doing all of that, and that was a Republican, what do you think they're gonna do with a Democratic seat that's empty? Of course, they're gonna hold it.
Yeah.
And so these ideas, they're collaborating through and through and through. And so it is absolutely the wrong direction. And in fact, it's having detrimental effects. It doesn't just affect now, it affects us long term. So we have got to get to a space and place where we get these midterms together. We got to do the work now. Midterms right around the corner. And we got to at least take one of those houses away from President Trump's control.
And Trump is definitely not running the White House by himself.
Correct. Well, we already know that.
He's not smart enough to do that.
We already
He
know that.
runs a business right down the drain.
We know that. I mean, you saw that Elon, Donald Trump, fallout. I mean, yes, he's got all these people around him telling him do this, that, and this time he's taking that advice. Before he wouldn't take advice from people. And you can see him moving so efficiently. He's moving efficiently now.
Now, my second question.
Yes, ma'am.
What are you going to do to help seniors with the substandard building?
Oh, good question. Good question.
Excellent question.
question.
My favorite question is Fontenot. I didn't even know you answered that.
And
Houses that are being built substandardly. I don't believe that HUD is aware of all of what's going on with the state and the local city.
Great question. And for those that are not familiar with what she's discussing, you had a lot of dollars flowing in to help repair and rebuild housing. But I can't tell you how many images I've seen, houses I've witnessed where the actual quality of the work was subpar. We have not.
hold on, man. I'm sorry, can y'all like either whisper more or step up, because we can hear it? Thank you. All right, I love y'all. I don't want to do that. Okay. Go ahead, man.
So that it's been some time. We have got to now hold our leadership accountable to repair that work. I know people don't like to hear that, but as someone who lived in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina happened, I'll tell you, a lot of what ended up happening then was that they had to do some repairs. And some of the volunteer work that was done because it wasn't done up to standard and was falling apart and putting community members in peril. You're gonna have the same thing happening here, and it's happening both at the volunteer level, but it also happens at the governmental level. Right now, our governmental side is not taking responsibility. Y'all remember there was a big old fight about who was gonna have those housing dollars, GLO versus the city. And, you know, at the end of the day, who do I think lost? The community. The community always is losing
Yep.
on this stuff, especially when it comes to housing. And when I was at the city, I might have heard, I got into a fight at the city about, not a physical fight, but don't start that rumor. But I got into, let me not say fight. Yeah, yes, exactly. Because I didn't agree with what was being done with regard to some of those dollars, right? We needed to be a conduit through which the help was flowing easier. It shouldn't be harder. We shouldn't be making you sign your life away to access the support that is owed to you. So there were some things in place I didn't agree with. And so we have got to think about what our job is when it's federal funding, especially support in terms of disasters. And that is, you know, right now, the way the government treats that money, it's only to guard against fraud and abuse. They think that if you need money from the government, then some kind of way you're gonna defraud them. And so they design their programs in ways that really just focus in a myopic way on just that one aspect of policy. But you've got to think about, how do we get the dollars in adequate amounts to where they need to go? How do we make sure the product is quality and in line with the expectation and the quality that people deserve? That wasn't being discussed. People were being told that it had to do a reconstruct. You go from, 3 bedrooms now to 2. Why? And a lot of what's been being done didn't make sense in terms of outcomes. And part of that also ties to quality of work. And so you have to also contemplate that we're gonna have to take ownership of mistakes that have been made by those that may have been contractors on this work and ask them to redo it. People not gonna wanna do that. But substandard work is substandard work.
I will.
Right.
I've got one of those houses.
Yeah. So absolutely, I'm happy to talk to you. Make sure Stephanie gets your contact and we can talk about advocacy plan for that. Absolutely. I'm willing to be helpful in that.
Okay, I want
Any other
to start wrapping this up because again, it gets crowded right around 10 o'clock ish. So I got 2 more questions. Anybody else have a question I want to ask really quickly? Whatever. Dominique, you good? I'm gonna ask you a question. Okay, so this is from a brother online. He says, quote, your time at City Hall, he said at City Hall, there was a problem with the crime labs, and a lot of the evidence was rape kits and some of those sexual assaults, possibly including kids. What can you do as a Congress person to make sure these victims actually have a voice versus just evidence collecting dust on the shelf for years and sometimes decades? Is this still a problem with the crime lab in Houston? And what can you do as a Congresswoman to help with this?
Great question about crime labs. They're in many cities, it can be challenging.
Yeah.
There can be a lot of challenges with management. In the city of Houston, we've seen various things emerge, backlogs, getting cleared. They're getting cleared out, but it's definitely a local issue as it relates to decision making. But again, I'm gonna go back to the 4-part role that you play as a congressional member. You can help support. A large part of those problems don't just stem from people wanting to make bad choices or wanting for there to be bad outcomes. A lot of that is also stemming from funding. Okay. So what you can do on a federal level is provide grant funds and make it available to cities. That's the beauty of this job, is that you can provide the resources to accompany the solutions or ideas that people might have to fix it, but don't have the resources. And so that is something you can push down to in the form of grants.
Okay. Okay, cool. And my second to the last question is, My organization is dealing with an issue right now. Well, all of the evidence points to HISD covering up a sexual predator at one of our high schools. The evidence is there. We got it. We got about 5 or 6 smoking guns. But it's been very difficult for us to get traction from HISD City Council on down. Like everybody's looking the other way. So if you were to, when you win, what can you do as a congresswoman to help us fix this problem of an HISD sexual predator cover up?
So I'm learning about, you're sharing some new information
Yes,
with me,
ma'am.
so guide me for a little bit, but so right now, the sexual predator is employed with.
No, last April,
Uh-huh.
I received some information, myself and a colleague, that an employee at that time of a high school, HIC high school, was removed from campus, arrested and removed because of some evidence that a student brought to an HID police officer. It turns out that he wasn't arrested, but he was removed. And from April to May, he was moved to a different location within HID and eventually fired because the evidence was clear. It was a video sent to a student. So from last April to this past May, we finally got a reporter to write an article, and I'll send it to you,
Okay.
about the situation. And it's clear, but we can't figure out why HISD didn't communicate with parents. They didn't tell them anything. They told the parent of the child, but nobody else. We can't figure out why HISD didn't give the evidence to the district attorney. We can't figure out why HPD said we don't have a file, but when we filed the Freedom of Information Act document request, it said HPD was notified. So there are a lot of holes in this thing, and when I send you the article and some other stuff, you will see what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So is either a lot of people are incompetent, which I don't believe, or someone is trying to sweep it under the rug and or protect him or themselves. I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of things that should have happened that happened in other school districts
Yeah.
aren't happening with HISD.
You know, it's got to be your top priority, and it sickens me right now because I am in different instances seeing how children are not being protected.
Yep.
Children are not being
Yes, ma'am.
protected.
Yes, ma'am.
Children are being protected when it comes to the quality of their education. That's the biggest chopping block. We're gonna take the money away from your school. The children are not being protected when it comes to issues that threaten their safety. Children are just not being protected, and there used to be, things that were just off limits. We've taken the guardrails off everything.
Yeah.
And what we have got to do is make that a priority, and that means sometimes you have to raise your hand and hold yourself accountable for wrongdoings. You can be in government and say, we should have done X and Y and Z,
Right.
and we did.
Yeah.
My mistake, we're gonna take a corrective course. That is responsible government, is learning from mistakes and fixing them.
Okay.
But covering up mistakes,
Yeah.
perpetuating bad behavior, is not acceptable behavior.
Right.
So you also have the ability in Congress, in addition to passing laws, in addition to having the ability to bring down resources, you use that bully pulpit and make sure that you can amplify issues so that you put that pressure on.
Okay.
And y'all know Congresswoman used to have a press conference,
Yeah.
okay? She would have one. And the reason is to put that pressure on.
Right.
And so sometimes
Okay.
people need a little pressure
Okay.
in order to then bring about the change. I always tell people on the city council side, because that's the world I was coming from, you know what to do? You mad about X and Y or Z? Go to public session.
Yeah.
And I said, well, go to public session. Why? Because the cameras are on. People don't like that. So you come, you start airing out what you concerned about on camera and how you called so-and-so's office and they didn't get back to you, and I'm gonna go down the list. You're gonna start seeing changes. So sometimes, and that's because it's a pressure that got created, and that is people are embarrassed that they're not doing the work they should be doing. And so they don't want that, they don't want that reflected out into the atmosphere. So I would suggest bringing that to the public board meetings, putting it out there, but applying the pressure. Maybe there is a press conference that might be needed. Maybe there is, so that people are starting to talk about this and say, what?
Right.
Because when you share that with me, I was not aware.
Sure.
So I'm sure there are people who were, but I was not aware.
Yeah.
So it's not viral, if you, so to speak,
Yeah.
in terms of everybody's household issue and knows that issue. So there needs to be some pressure
Okay,
to make that
so
happen.
I'm not gonna get into it now because of time,
Yeah.
but what you just said,
Mhm.
we did,
Okay.
and people, they're
They
not
just did not.
they're not interested, but we'll get into that later because of time. Okay, so this
Okay.
next one's gonna be kind of hard for you,
Okay.
but I gotta ask.
Okay.
Because you gotta be on the hot seat a little bit.
Okay.
Okay,
Hot seat.
so, hot
I said
seat,
this is
right.
a hot seat question, y'all.
the hot seat question. Okay, so I told a young lady, I guess we're friends, I think we're friends, associates, that you were gonna be here. And she said that she has reached out to she tried to contact you many times. And I guess from how she sends the messages, it looks like you're reading the messages, but you don't respond. She said she met you in 2019 when you came to her alma mater, and you were asking for everybody to vote for you because you're running for US Senate. She voted for you and got other people to vote for you, but now you don't even respond to her messages. And she said comical. So what would you say to this young lady who is kind of disheartened and hurt because she met you, she voted for you, got other people vote for you, but now you don't seem to
If you can
respond?
get that young lady's contact information, I'll make sure to respond. I don't,
Okay.
sometimes people will send messages to accounts you may not be checking.
Yeah.
For example, or they're defunct. Sometimes
Okay.
it's sometimes it'll get stuck in like DMs and social media,
Sure,
like
yeah.
things like that.
Yep.
And so we have a lot of people in those accounts.
Okay.
And so it could be something like that. I don't know specifically.
Sure.
So that's why I want to get her
Okay, that's a good
confirmation.
answer.
Yeah,
That's a good answer.
absolutely. So
Okay.
if that's the case, we don't want anybody to feel like that, we were known for being very responsive. So that's the way I
Okay.
approach my leadership. So if there's some gap in that communication,
Right.
we just fix it.
Okay, cool. Amen.
Yeah.
All right. So last two questions for you, then we'll be done. Why is voting for you the best vote a person can make for the 18th Congressional District? And how can people support you and or join your team if they want to do so?
Okay, so you can join my team by seeing this lady right here in the big Amanda Edwardsburg shirt. That's Stephanie. If you're with our team already, you need a yard sign. She got that too. So she's got it all. She got the buttons. I don't know if she got buttons with her today. Okay. So you can join us by talking to Stephanie or visiting us online, www.edwardsforhouston.com. We're on social media. We're on Blue Sky and Twitter as AK Edwards TX. We're on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram as Amanda K. Edwards TX. So you can find us on social media as well. But we encourage you to sign up and volunteer. Things have been going very well with our campaign. Our block walks, our phone banks have gone extraordinarily well. People are ready. They've had a chance to vet me, kick the tires. They know what I'm about. They know I'm consistent. I don't take my ball and go home if something doesn't go my way. I stay with the community because that's in me to do that.
Yeah.
And so it's either in you or it's not. And for me, that's what I'm built to do, is to serve this community. And so I am someone who is very, very excited about the opportunity. I think people are excited to have somebody in this field that really gets what it means to show up and deliver and be consistent in that. So I encourage y'all to do that. And you asked me what else. You said how to get involved.
And why should somebody vote for you?
Oh, watch somebody vote for me.
That's the easy one.
As I mentioned, I'm on the ballot. My name appears there. But the truth of the matter is, you're on the ballot. Your family is on the ballot. Your future is on the ballot. Don't do it for me. Do it for you. And if you think that I'm the candidate that can truly convert these campaign speeches into reality, to truly restore confidence in seeing people be effective in government, then I want you to vote for me. If you believe that you want to have a congresswoman that's going to show up at people's doorsteps and don't just stop and do the photo op, but instead help that senior get those sheetrock taken out of their house, rebuild that 84-year-old's home who told me, Mr. Brown told me, I just want a safe place to live before I die. He said that to me. It haunted me. I contacted the city. This was after city council. And this is what I'm talking about. I was after city council. I was doing a food and water distribution. Somebody came up to me and said, hey, can you help my senior who had gotten impacted with Uri? I said, no problem. I thought it was a pipe burst situation. I sent my plumbers out to go check on it. They came back to me and said, ma'am, we can't let him stay in that house. I said, well, why not? You're gonna fix the pipes? They said, no, we fixed the pipes, but you haven't seen this house.
Mm.
Sent me the photos, broke my heart. Water coming down from every direction, catching it with buckets everywhere, mold, I mean, just horrific conditions. This is an 84-year-old man, okay? So we got him removed from the home. And I said to him, I'm gonna try to help you. And I'm your former at-large city council member. I've done all this work with Harvey. I got all these people that's help. Surely I could help this man. And I remember my first call, my second call, my third call, people telling me they were gonna help him, not following through, telling me, no, I can't do anything for him. And then he said those words, I just need a safe place to live before I die.
Mm.
Haunted me. You know what we did? We rolled up our sleeves and we did it ourselves.
Wow.
Because we couldn't find anybody to help him. We partnered with another organization. Our organization put in a bunch of money. Their organizations got, also then helped us secure AmeriCorps. They gave me a power tool, y'all. I didn't really build a house, but they let me do a few things. But in all honesty, we had to just do it ourselves because I would not take no for an answer. And so that's who you need to send to Congress. It's somebody who isn't going to take no for an answer. And even if every door closes in her face, she's still gonna find a way to get you the help that you need. That's the kind of person that we need in a role like this. That's the kind of person we need fighting against Donald Trump. That's the kind of person we need having a vision for our community and getting us to get back in the saddle and re-engage so that we can start seeing real change for ourselves. That's what this is about. So if you want that type of change, if you want that type of leader, I'm the person for you. Thank you very much.
All right, you ready for that one, please? All right, so thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. Thursday morning breakfast. This is why we do this. It matters when people who say they want to do work show up. I reached out to everybody that's running. Is it 22?
26.
26. I reached out to 18 of them. The other ones are new.
Yeah.
Not everybody responded. Not everybody showed up. What we do here matters because our communities are up against it and won't even know it.
That's correct.
I've been working on trying to make the community aware of Project 2025 since February of last year.
They didn't believe it.
They did not believe it. We had public events, private events. Our Juneteenth event was about Project 2025.
Didn't believe it.
I actually wrote a booklet, a 44-page booklet you can download from my website about solutions of how we can push back. When she said they got Project 2025 because they're organized and they're serious. And they don't stop. So if we don't understand that we have to have our own grassroots Project 2025, and it can't be just Brother Shaka trying to grow some food, Brother Will trying to get people in the community to vote, Ms. Fontenot trying to get the seniors off. It can't just be that level. We need people on this level, and we have to be organized together. It's good that we want to boycott Target. I'm cool with that. However, it can't be just that. Because their motivation for the kind of America that they want, that they're putting in place. These people are not playing games with us. So if we don't get serious about doing our part, and it's unfair for us to expect one person to do it, congressperson, city council, state rep, it's unfair for us to say that because it takes a unified effort. So we can elect her or whomever, and she can do every single thing she can do. But if we're not on the ground working with her, if we're not aligning ourselves with her, if we're not working with her to go talk to the other congresspersons, because she won't be the only one, it's not going to work. People don't know that Project 2025, this most recent one, is the 5th version.
And they've been doing, just so y'all know to have context, they're called mandates and conservative leadership. The Heritage Foundation has been putting this out since the 80s. Y'all remember all those tax cuts that Donald Reagan did in the 80s? Those recommendations, a lot of the things he was doing back then came out of the mandates of conservative leadership.
And I was just about to say that was the first version.
That was the first version.
And this was the 5th one. And before that, it was called something else. So you got to keep in mind that evil don't stop. They're going to do what they're going to do because they have a certain vision of America, and it's not the vision that we want. And you can see from this president, that they're ahead of schedule
And then also gutted middle class.
on purpose.
Correct.
Right. So like Sister Amanda said, if they are intentional and purposeful with their actions, then we have to be intentional and purposeful with ours. And the good thing that we have going for us, the good thing, they got the money, but we got the numbers.
That's correct.
But the numbers aren't organized. The numbers don't mobilize. And if we don't get poor, black, brown, white, yellow, green, blue, whatever, because the grassroots outnumbers the 1% every day, all day. If we get them to vote, it's a done deal.
It's a done deal.
As long as we can have the right to vote, and there's one person want to vote, we got a chance.
But they gotta believe that voting matters.
You got to utilize that
And
weapon.
so that
Yep.
piece is where there's a disconnect. They do not see
Yep.
the voting made a difference the
Yep.
last time they went to go vote. So they saying, well, this time I ain't going to do that. It
Right.
doesn't matter no way. Nothing ever changes over here.
That's right.
And that's the conversation that y'all have to have with
That's right.
them.
Yep.
And say, listen, I get why we gotta be honest too,
Yeah.
right? Like we can't run around here acting like we've delivered on everything, right? Like when George Floyd was murdered and we said we're gonna have George Floyd Justice and Police Net, we're gonna have, we said we're gonna do John Lewis Voting Rights Act, we were gonna do some things. They didn't pass.
Yeah.
You know what but we told them, if you vote for Biden, this is going to happen. If you vote for this person, this is going to happen. So those were the words
Yep.
that we use. We overpromised and underdelivered.
Yep.
Now we've got to pay the price for that. Now we can fix it if we're honest, but people don't like when you engage them in ways like, "Oh, don't worry about that," or "We didn't really lie. We didn't intend to lie." That's not the question. We said we were going to do something, we didn't do it.
Right.
So we got to deal with that
Yep.
with honesty. Here's why. We shouldn't have said it this way. This is what we should have said. Going forward, this is how we're going to talk. That is the conversation that can restore confidence, not it doesn't matter, or we passed an executive order that did a little bit, and that doesn't satisfy people.
Right.
And where they also are too, they're getting a lot of misinformation. And I know a lot of people think that the misinformation people get is silly, so then they don't engage them at that level. But guess what? Somebody's believing this stuff.
Oh yeah.
And so instead of saying, "Oh, you're dumb if you support so and so," or "You believe that," how could you believe that? And then leave it there? That's not the way to bring people into the fold. You gotta have that conversation and explain to them, "Oh, well, this social media influencer actually is getting paid by by this candidate to say that to you.
Yeah.
Did you know that?" Have that
You
conversation.
got to take time.
You gotta take the time. You can't be dismissive and then expect to then entice them into the fold. Y'all know the theory, you attract what? More fives with honey than you do with vinegar. It's true.
Yeah.
We gotta pull the honey out and have these conversations and then bring people back fold. They wanna, especially this generation now, they wanna be seen and heard. They wanna feel heard, they wanna feel seen. That's a big thing. So this whole, I don't know what they doing, and your grandfather fought for this, and I don't know why y'all even do that. Gotta meet them where they are,
Right.
whether you agree with it or not.
Yeah.
That's how you bring people into the vote.
Yeah. We have, and I'm constantly telling Black people this. We have to love our people from where they are, not where we want them to be.
There you have
Because if you don't do that, no, girl, stop. So,
it.
it's unfair to us and to them to put them in a place where they aren't, because we need them. And everybody's concerns in this room is why people absolutely must vote. And when you don't vote, you get a Donald Trump. And the dangerous thing about Donald Trump is like Ms. Martin said, you're right. He's not running things. He's not that smart. But the dangers of Donald Trump is that he don't give a damn. He'll do whatever those persons that are giving him money, whatever they want him to, he'll do because he don't care. And it's unfortunate that a lot of white people thought DEI meant black. They thought it meant it's going to affect somebody else. They didn't know that DEI was the children and the veterans and your child who need medication. They didn't understand that DEI was them. It was women. But when you're racist, that happens. So if we don't take time to talk to people about what's really going on, it's only going to get worse. They're just getting started, and it's been, 6 months, 7 months? It hasn't been that long. And he got 3.5 years. And we hope after that he leaves. We hope, but who knows? So on that note, thank you guys for coming out. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Thursday morning breakfast. This is why we do what we do, because it matters. Yeah, have a good day. Yeah, God bless. You up? I gotta go. Hold on.
Okay. Thank y'all so much. If y'all need anything, contact